In today's show, what Portland can learn from the James Harden mess. Aren't you glad the Trailblazers aren't there yet? Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen. All August long, we're 3 days a week. We'll continue on this 3-day path into the first part of September. Then we'll be back 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, wherever you get podcasts as we round into the regular season. But for now, summertime schedule. So thanks for rocking with me. In today's show, I want to talk a little bit about the James Harden drama. James Harden is messy. He's always messy, and he loves being messy. My man cannot stop being messy. Everywhere he goes, he makes a mess. It's his one true joy in life. Many of us probably have a friend who does better with the drama, and I think James Harden might be that friend for many folks. Then I want to offer up, I would completely change gears, close the show with skills to add to a couple different Blazers. People ask me a version of this question every offseason. Oh, if you could add one skill to a Blazer, what would it be? And it's usually like would you add Clyde Drexler's hops to Andre Miller or something like that? And yeah, I would do that. That sounds fun. But I want to do some sort of more realistic skills players can build on, like things they can tangibly get better at, and things like realistic, hopeful, tangible things they get better at that will help the Blazers next season. And then we'll sprinkle in some pixie dust stuff as well. That's what we'll do, close the show. Let's start with the James Harden drama. Over the weekend, it was reported that Daryl Morey and the Philadelphia 76ers, according to Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN, are no longer entertaining trade talks, have shut down trade talks, and are planning to bring James Harden into camp. And then a few hours later, Sam Amick of The Athletic confirmed that initial report from ESPN, and took it a step further that says James Harden doesn't plan to report. The beef is on. And then a video surfaced on Sunday of James Harden, or maybe on Monday, depending on your time zones. But a video surfaced over the weekend in the August 13th or 14th of James Harden at an event for his shoe in China, for his shoes, promoting Adidas shoes in China. It was a Q&A. And he says the following at the end of his Q&A. Daryl Morey is a liar. I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of. Let me repeat that. This is what he said, that part. Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of. He said it twice in China to applause. Talk about knowing your audience, hating on Daryl Morey in China. Good job, James. What a freaking mess. So we get from Philly's not going to trade him because they can't get the trade package they want back, to James Harden doesn't plan to report, to James Harden saying, I will never play for an organization in which Daryl Morey is a part of it, repeating it twice in a place where Daryl Morey is maybe not beloved, certainly by the government. Daryl Morey famously started an international incident and briefly got NBA games taken off the airwaves in China, but they're back on, and James Harden's back beefing. It's what he does, requesting a trade from a third organization. First Houston, then Brooklyn, and now Philly. Houston, he famously showed up kind of out of shape and disinterested, didn't report to training camp on time, showed up out of shape after partying in Atlanta and Vegas. Comes to Houston, plays 8 games, eventually gets traded to the Brooklyn Nets. The Nets trade request is like, that situation seems bad. So at the time, it's like, you know what? Maybe James Harden's right to get out of here. He doesn't, Kyrie Irving is a really challenging coworker. Kevin Durant, it doesn't really process joy very well. Maybe this isn't a place you want to work. And it seemed at the time like, it's not the worst thing. Head to Philly, play with Joel Embiid. Maybe this is normal. But doing this a third time in the manner in which he done it, it's just, what's going on, James? Earlier this summer, he had a chance to enter free agency and choose wherever he wanted to play. But the contract out there that he wanted, a big old max contract, just wasn't going to happen. It's certainly not on a good team, and bad teams probably don't want to offer James Harden at his age a max contract. He wouldn't want to go there. They wouldn't want to have him. It's kind of similar to the situation with Damian Lillard, is that he's really good and would help, but not every team wants a guy in his, entering his mid-30s on a giant deal. That's for certain teams, but not every team. And James Harden, so then he chose to opt into his contract. $35.6 million, except that's a huge discount from the max money that he could have gotten when he took a discount last summer. Famously wanted credit for taking a discount. It seems like him and Daryl Morey pretty much had a handshake agreement. Take this money now, opt out next year, or opt in next year, and we'll find a way to re-sign you to max money, but we need to create this cap space, this cap circumvention to sign Daniel House and PJ Tucker. They created the cap space to sign Daniel House and PJ Tucker. They were fined for cap circumvention, like straight up violating the rules. And Daryl Morey, according to James Harden, at least reading between the not so thinly veiled lines, did not make good on his promise. And so James Harden opted in and requests a trade, and he only has one place he wants to go. Does that sound familiar? He wants to play for the Los Angeles Clippers. But the Clippers don't have a very good trade package. It's something like Norman Powell and Bones Highland. Throw in Marcus Morris. Maybe you can haggle over Terrence Mann, but if that's the sticking point to get James Harden, I just can't imagine it is. Reportedly, they don't want to include Terrence Mann, but really, that's the sticking point. I think in general, it's that Terrence Mann is not that type of prospect. And if you can't reroute a decent player to get better players, does that sound familiar, Trailblazers fans? Just the one destination trade's never going to happen. So Daryl Morey says, we're not going to trade him. And James Harden says, I'm never playing for that dude's organization ever again, and you're in a mess. In many ways, this seems similar to the Blazers' situation. And I think in broad strokes, it's similar, but I don't think it's completely analogous. I don't actually think it's analogous at all, really. James Harden wants what Dame has, which is a long-term contract that pays him the max into the second half of his 30s. If James Harden had 4 years and $200 million left on his deal, he'd probably be cold chilling. Hanging out with his friends who make hip-hop music and like partying. My man knows how to enjoy downtime. He's one of the best that there's ever been. But instead he's mad. So it's not that, in that way it's not similar to Dame. And the way it's been public is not similar to Dame. And the way that is the real lesson here. And I think this is where the roads diverge, because Dame has the thing Harden wants and still wants out. And Harden could have, Dame has never really had a chance to get into free agency. He's never been a free agent during his career. He signed extensions. And when he signed that max extension in 2021, 2022, or signed it in 2021 and it kicked in, or it kicks in a few years. But like, it's when Dame signed that, his first opportunity it was 2022. I'm getting my years, who knows what year it is. I'm getting my years fixed up, but he signed it last spring. When he chose to do that, he pretty much killed his last chance to ever become a free agent. James Harden had a chance to become a free agent, and the market just wasn't there for him because nobody had max money. No team that was going to be good enough to add James Harden and be a championship level team was going to be able to create max cap space. It just wasn't going to be the summer that it happened. The only team that was going to be able to do it was Philly, and Philly chose not to. The Blazers did the other way, right? They chose to sign Dame. I don't think they're particularly analogous in that sense. And the lesson is that, like, if you let this stuff linger, it can happen this way. I don't think Dame is like this. I think it's been relatively messy for Dame this summer. Like, just in the grand scheme, it's been relatively messy. Not calling Joe Cronin a liar, not beefing with the franchise. In fact, when Dame seemed to have maybe had liked a tweet that was mean to Jody Allen, he went on the internet and specifically said no, I got no beef with Blazers ownership, and Jody Allen has been great and all this stuff. Like, he's gone out of his way to kind of not say and I believe he was said in another Instagram thing that he's got, always bulletproof love for Portland. Like, he loves this place in like a sort of like, I want this to be part of my future type of thing, but he wants to play for another team. Like, don't get it twisted. I don't think he'll end up like James Harden doing this, but I think this is the worry, is that James Harden might get what he wants. I think the players who have most notably gotten what they wanted recently have been the messiest about it. Kevin Durant requesting a trade before a 4-year extension kicks in. He went back and played. There was a lot more on-court upside, and more on that in a second. Like the Nets were pretty good because they had Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. They were still going to be decent, right? To not like, you could talk yourself into them being darn good if everything worked out in their favor just because of the level of talent they had, right? It didn't, and obviously they broke up in the end. But like Kevin Durant was publicly messy in that way. Jimmy Butler, with a really aggressive exit from Minnesota, and then a similar type of thing, but maybe a little bit more behind closed doors, leaving Philly, but really aggressive, show up to practice late to training camp with your name cut out of the team name cut out of your t-shirt, and beat up on the starters with the scrubs and say, pay me, these guys stink type of thing. And Anthony Davis. Rich Paul, during the Anthony Davis saga, was fined for telling Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN on the record that his client had requested a trade and wanted to be traded from the Pelicans. He was fined for that. And then Anthony Davis's dad, I can't remember exactly the setting, but he made it public that any team that wasn't the Lakers that traded for Anthony Davis was going to be getting a 1-year rental. Now, you could argue whether having your dad do that or Chris Haynes has more value, but like players, Anthony Davis got what he wanted. Jimmy Butler got what he wanted. Kevin Durant got what he wanted. James Harden might get what he wants. Players who are messy get what they want. And I think that's the worry for, not that I'm like warning the Blazers, you have to capitulate to Dame, just that like this stuff, when it drags on, can get messy, and the messiness stinks. It stinks. The Blazers should probably just try to get the best deal, but their read on the market will have a lot to do with what is the best deal. Is there a better deal down the line, or is it the same deal with a little more risk? And the risk I want to mention real quick. I'm dragging on a little bit here in the first segment. I apologize, but the difference in the KD stuff and the James Harden stuff is in the past here, in the past sort of star trade demands of recent of KD and now of James Harden, is that if James Harden goes back to Philly and plays, they're going to be pretty good. And when Kevin Durant, I mean, it sounds like he won't, but like if they can convince him, right? Like if they can talk him into it, they'll be pretty good. Like you could, they'll lose in the second round of the playoffs. They'll win a playoff series. You know where they're headed. Kevin Durant in Brooklyn, like they were pretty good. They were going to be a team that competed to win a playoff series and beyond. The Blazers don't really have that on-court upside with Dame. They do not have on-court upside with Dame. Bringing Dame back into the fold does not magically make them a playoff team. They are, one of the worst teams in the league without him, and they are probably not a play-in team with him. Like they're worse. They were not good last year, and they're worse. The roster's worse this year. So like there isn't like bring Dame back and see what happens. Like it's not exactly analogous to the Harden thing. I don't mean to compare the two. Like I want to be specific, like clear. Like I think these are different buckets of trade demands. I think the lessons to learn here and why this show is, the lessons is like if you, and I feel like Dame feels like he was maybe owed some promises, so his promises were broken by the front office. If you make a player mad, because players have a lot of, an individual can really mess things up in the NBA because there's only 15 players in the roster. If you let bad stuff fester and boil over and go and just drag on, it might get messy. I don't think Dame's I think Dame will report and play, and the Blazers will have this weird thing where they have to decide whether they want him to play or not. But I think Dame will show up and be ready to play in training camp. I anticipate that. So it's not going to be a James Harden thing. But the longer you let it sit around, the chances that it gets worse increase a lot. The chances that, I think, and there's very little on-court upside to Dame playing, like the actual games. I'm, again, not a threat or anything, just like a thought. And watching this James Harden stuff, I am mostly thankful that the Dame drama is just kind of middle school, he said, she said, rumors drama, as opposed to I hate this dude. I'm going to China to tell the country that also hates this dude that he stinks. I don't know where Dame would do that. I don't know where Joe Cronin has beef, but Dame will find it and obviously make it happen. Okay. Wow, we went super long. We will clean it up in the second half of the show. But first, before we get there, I want to talk in the second segment about skills I would add to players. I got an idea to make Anfernee Simons better. Join me in the second segment. Real ideas, real basketball stuff. Join me in the second segment. First, tell you about FanDuel. Listen, it's football season. The NFL is about to be here, and FanDuel is giving you a chance to win all season long. Right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, a futures bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Pick a team to win the Super Bowl. You'll get bonus bets for every victory. You get bonus bets. That's free bets that you can use on things like spreads, player props, over-unders, and more all season long. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. All right. James Harden drama, Dame drama. You've had enough. And if you made it to the second segment, let's talk about basketball. So I get this question a lot. I put out mailbags. If you want to ask me a question, lockedonblazerspod@gmail.com is the address. That's lockedonblazerspod@gmail.com is the email address. I get this a lot. It's like, add a skill to a player, and who could they be? Like add Arvydas Sabonis's passing skills to Detlef Schrempf, and what would they become? I don't think people really want to upgrade Detlef Schrempf, but add like Damian Lillard's level of shooting to Stacey Augmon, and how good is Stacey Augmon type of thing. Like, I love stupid hypotheticals. Don't get me wrong. This show is in a lot of ways built on stupid hypotheticals, but I thought about that sort of premise that I often get in crafting what I want to do at the end of the show, which is like skills that players can actually improve on to help the Blazers get better. And then we'll do some pixie dust ones. We'll do one real one, one pixie dust one to end the show, or two real ones, two pixie dust ones to end the show. The first real one is I think Anfernee Simons could get about as good at drawing fouls as D'Angelo Russell. That seems like a small thing, right? According to cleaningtheglass.com, the indispensable stats website from Ben Falk, Anfernee Simons drew a shooting foul on 6.3% of his field goal attempts. That is not very many. That is low for a combo guard. Not up there. He's in the bottom third of the league among combo guards, among players at his position, and he's below like Mike Conley, a guy who's not blowing by people anymore. He's below Howell Neto, just like a backup dude who doesn't even shoot that much, and he's below D'Angelo Russell. And why I picked D'Angelo Russell is because D'Angelo Russell's a floater king. And Anfernee Simons has a great in-between game. He's developed that little running hook shot. He's got a floater with both hands. He's really comfortable with it. And if you're a long-time listener to the show, you know that I think that shot is too hard. Ant is really stinking good at it. He's one of the best in the league at that kind of like little push, particularly going to his right. He's like really good at that sort of that little push, like caught in the 3 to 4 feet range, like not quite all the way at the rim, meets a challenger, puts up a little touch shot, great touch, got good elevation, long arms, like can make it happen. Hit a freaking, baby hook game winner over Mikal Bridges earlier this year. Like it's a go-to move. Like it works. D'Angelo Russell is similar. He's not a guy who gets all the way to the rim. He shoots a ton of floaters, ton of pull-ups. His are like one-legged slow-motion pull-ups. And D'Angelo Russell, D-Lo, gets fouled on 7.7% of his, draws a shooting foul on 7.7% of his field goal attempts. It's just a little bit better. I'm not asking Anfernee Simons to get to wildly change his game. In fact, I think that's the whole point of this, is like, what is something that he could reasonably get better on? Draw fouls a little bit more often. I think in general, surprisingly enough, Anfernee Simons was among combo guards the 60th percentile in and one percentage. When he gets fouled, he finishes, and he's a really good free throw shooter. He's getting free points, but he's got to increase his drives per game, and I think he will this year. He was at 8.8 last year. For context, Damian Lillard averages like 16 drives a game. No one else who plays regularly gets drives to the rim as much as Ant. It's not like he was allergic to it. He was better at it this year than he's ever been, but continued to take those steps. And he doesn't need to become this foul magnet. He doesn't need to become Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He doesn't need to become Luka Doncic. He doesn't need to become Damian Lillard, who gets fouled on almost 15% of his field goal attempts draw a shooting foul. He's great at it. Dame has weaponized it. He's a good flopper. He's a good foul drawer. He's really good at using his burst, particularly going left and saying, I'm going to finish inside hand, right hand, and left side. You've seen Dame do it a million times. Use his strength, use his burst, get to the rack, get a foul. If he doesn't get all the way there, get fouled. If he does get there, finish and get fouled. 15% of his field goal gets fouled on 15% of his field goal attempts. Earns a shooting foul. I'm not asking that for Ant. That would be more than doubling his rate. That's outrageous, right? Like, that is too big of an ask for him. Hey, Ant, just become Damian Lillard. Okay, great. He's not going to be that. They just don't have, they're just not that like the burst isn't there for Ant. And I'm not sure it ever will be that, like, it's true explosion to the rim. We're not asking him to change his game. Asking him to do it a little better. Become D'Angelo Russell. So up from getting fouled on 6.3% of your field goal attempts to about 8% of your field goal attempts, you will be better. Okay, a pixie dust one before we get out of here. Here's my pixie dust one. If I could do a pixie dust one, it'd be Jusuf Nurkic to make layups. Pretty much no season that Jusuf Nurkic has ever played real minutes, except for he played 8 games in the bubble. But any season he's played real minutes, he has never finished in the top 30, in the top third in the league. He's always been in the bottom quarter of the league. Always been in the bottom quarter of the league in big men finishing around the rim, according to Clean the Glass. He's never been a good finisher. So wishing, he's going to be good. This year he's going to be good. This year he's going to be really good. He's going to be good this year. Silly, right? It's pixie dust. If I had my pixie dust, I'd say, yeah, what if you became an elite finisher? An elite finisher. You just make your layups. Just make your layups. It's not going to happen. That's my pixie dust. Okay, I got a real one for Shaedon Sharpe, how Shaedon Sharpe can truly improve. Some pixie dust we're going to sprinkle on Jeremy Grant. Join me in the third segment, won't ya? Still a pass first point guard. Still Mike Richmond. You are still listening to Locked on Blazers. Gave the skill that Anfernee Simons can add is draw more shooting fouls. Upticks and drive to the rim. Cut out some of your floaters to draw and accept contact. Become marginally better at getting to the line. You make 90% of your free throws, 90% of your free throws. You're going to get free points. Increase your draw more shooting fouls. That's the goal for Anfernee Simons. The goal for Shaedon Sharpe is to become a better pull-up shooter. On the year, according to NBA.com, stats tracking from Second Spectrum on NBA.com is publicly available, 32.3% overall on pull-ups for Shaedon Sharpe in his rookie season, including 25% from 3. That's 32 of 128. Took the third most pull-up threes on the team. Dame took 400, 427. Anfernee Simons took 256. And Shaedon took 128. I expect him to take somewhere in the range of 250 pull-up threes this year. He shot 25% on pull-up three-pointers. You say, but Mike, he sucked at the beginning of the season. What about the end of the year? What about the end of the year when he took off, baby? 31.8% on overall on pull-ups. That's worse. And 29.6% on pull-up threes. He was better on pull-up threes, worse on pull-up twos. Improve to be shoot about the league average off the dribble from 3. Like the league average from 3 is about 36%. If Shaedon Sharpe shot about 34.5% from 3 on pull-ups, he would be really hard to guard. Really hard to guard because he doesn't have this like explosive first step. I think that's the most surprising part about his game is he doesn't have that Ja Morant burst, Russell Westbrook burst, but he's very scary as a straight line driver. And if he could shoot like really well off the dribble, then that pump fake, shuffle your feet like you're going to go into a jumper and then go, like it opens up your burst, right? Like because people have to close out on you differently. They have to come around screens on you differently. Everything changes. I used to be take a yoga class from, I'm going to give her a shout out because I don't think she listens, and I love giving shout out to people I think will have 0% chance of listening. If you are someone who can pass this along to dear friend Kate Hurley, do it. I used to take a yoga class pretty regularly from Kate Hurley. I mean, I don't think she's a yoga instructor anymore, but she was 5, 6, 7 years ago. And she used to say at the beginning of her classes that she wanted everyone to get 5 to 7% more comfortable. You're laying down, you're about to get going. It's a pretty challenging, physically challenging class. But at the beginning, you start lying down. So get 5 to 7% more comfortable because we're about to get going. But like right now, find yourself, get more comfortable. That's my goal for Shaedon Sharpe. That Kate Hurley method, 5 to 7% more comfortable. If he shoots 5% better on threes, that's on pull-up threes from 25% to 30%. Last year, that would have been 21 more points. He would average double figures on the season. That's nothing. Like in the grand scheme, that's nothing. Seven more threes to make 39 out of 128. I think he can take a bigger jump than that. But I'm telling you, if Shaedon Sharpe takes the jump from 25% off pull-up threes to 32% on pull-up threes, and he also doubles his volume from 125 to 250, he's going to be a totally scary different player. Usually rookies are bad. Year 2, you kind of figure it out. Year 3, you take off. Sharpe was not very good early in his rookie year, had some moments of figuring it out, and then at the end of the year really looked like he had some things were clicking. Had a bad summer league, but he has some skills to be really talented. And for me, the skill that makes really good players at this level really good is you can throw them the ball and they can go get their own shot. You can just say, hey, go score. Take pull-up jump shots, get themselves to the rim, get fouled. But shooting is the separator. Shout out to Phil Beckner. Shooting is the separator. Like 32% on pull-ups on the year, 25% on pull-up threes. When the volume tipped up at the end of the year, a little worse on twos, better on pull-up threes. And I think that is, to me, that's promising. Obviously, a much smaller sample size. We're talking 9 games. I didn't even count the game he played with Dame in Utah in Dame's last game. The final 9 games, when it was just the Shaedon Sharpe show, 29% on pull-up threes. If you improve 5% from that mark, and you're a 35% shooter on pull-up threes on 250 attempts, then you are shooting at the same level as Anfernee Simons, and you are an excellent basketball player. Like Shaedon Sharpe will push up averaging 18, 19 points per game if he shoots that well from 3. But 5 to 7%. And I'm not talking from that number. I'm talking somewhere from 30 to 32 on pull-up threes. Be a respectable pull-up three-point shooter on a whole bunch of volume. You're going to get the green light. When you see the green light, let it go. That's a real thing he can improve at. And I think that's a real skill you can, like shooting is a skill you can improve at. And that doesn't even, his handle isn't very good right now. 2 rhythm dribbles into a pull-up 3 is still a pull-up 3. Pump fake sidestep is a pull-up 3. Like that's put the ball down. It doesn't require him to like wildly tighten up his handle. That's something he should do. Absolutely he should do. But like small, actionable, tangible things. Anfernee Simons get fouled on 2% more of your field goal attempts. Shaedon Sharpe make 5% more of your spot-up threes. Bang. These are better players. And if they take other steps, other way that we don't see, or didn't foresee, then you're talking crazy big leap from Shaedon Sharpe, but a very basic one. Shoot better on pull-ups. Okay, here's some pixie dust for you. What if Jeremy Grant rebounded the ball? What if Jeremy Grant rebounded the ball? Like one of the I think Jeremy Grant is good. He's still slow laterally on defense. He doesn't pass very well, and he really doesn't rebound. But I think because he's a little slow laterally and he doesn't pass, he's probably a 4 because defensively he's probably a 4, like that he's just better guarding that style of player. And offensively, if you're not a great I think you'd rather have more playmakers. So if you have another playmaker who's a 4, that doesn't matter as much for me, for Jeremy Grant. But those are skill sets you're missing. I think defensively he's a 4, and skill set wise, you can just make it work. But the big issue with him is that he doesn't rebound. If I had some pixie dust and I'd already sprinkled it, a portion of it on Yusuf Nurkic to make him make layups, I would sprinkle it on Jeremy Grant to make him just grab defensive rebounds. He has always been like a very poor offensive rebounder, according to Cleaning the Glass. He has, early in his career, He has never grabbed more than 5% of the available offensive rebounds on missed live shots. Brooklyn Glass breaks it up by field goal attempts and free throw attempts because those are different style of rebounds. He's never grabbed more than 5%, and that was early in his career. That was in 2017-18, his first full season in OKC. But since his full season in OKC, a season in OKC, a couple seasons in Detroit, or a season in Denver, a couple seasons in Detroit, 3% on offensive rebounds, 2% of offensive rebounds, under 2% as last year in Detroit, 2.5% of the available offensive rebounds as a Blazer. I'm over that. I'm not even using my pixie dust for offensive rebounding. Just grab defensive boards. That's how you finish possessions. His last season in Detroit, Jeremy Grant grabbed 12.2% of the available defensive rebounds. That's, when a shot goes up, it's like, I think the percentage of rebounding is much better than just the raw boards, right? Even team rebound percentage when you're on the court is actually probably the best measure of rebounding, because I think we have enough, if you've watched enough basketball, you know that Robin Lopez and Brooke Lopez are great rebounders, but they don't get rebounds. And by that, I mean, they just box people out and their teams always dominate the glass. Steven Adams is a dominant rebounding force. He doesn't always grab rebounds. Heck, Russell Westbrook was grabbing all those free ones because Steve-O was an elite box out man. So I think even personal defensive rebounding is a little rough, but in terms of what you're after when you're measuring, does this person help rebounding? But in general, Jeremy Grant's never even grabbed 15% of the available defensive rebounds, and he's 6'9". If I had pixie dust, he'd be grabbing 22%. He'd be like a dominant defensive rebounder. I'm over the offensive rebound stuff. That's pixie dust for another day. I wasted it all on Yusuf Nurkic's layups. Dominant defensive rebounder. Because if Jeremy Grant did that, if he just was if he had the Josh Hart nose for the ball, he'd be a totally different player. Okay, those are my ideas. Ant getting more foul shots, Shaedon Sharpe making pull-ups, and some magic hope that in their 10th NBA season, Yusuf Nurkic and Jeremy Grant become totally different players. It could happen. I promise it could happen, right? I think the realistic ones could realistically happen. Tell your friends about the show. We're going to do 3 of these a week. It's what we do all August long. Find it wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.